You may be surprised at the following news story. All of a sudden, gun-loving conservatives, they don't love guns anymore. You ever think about this? These snowflake conservatives are trying to restrict people's access to guns. I know you might not believe it, but I got this clip here for you. On Tucker Carlson tonight, a couple of days ago, Tucker Carlson did a 4-minute long segment about why certain groups of people should not be allowed to have guns. I say this: I love guns. I support people's right to have guns, especially people that, let's say, are women. And maybe they don't feel safe walking around at night, so they bring a gun in case somebody tries to rape them. If you're Tucker Carlson, you would not support that woman having a gun. Let's say you're a black person living in a racist town. I know conservatives don't believe that racism exists, but let's at least acknowledge there's a couple of towns where, you know, there might be racist people. If you're a black person and you want to have a gun, it's your right. Second Amendment to the Constitution. Our rights shall not be infringed. I really don't know what is wrong with Tucker Carlson or his conservative snowflake fans, where they cannot, all of a sudden, they forget how the English language works. Our right to bear arms shall not be infringed. So anyway, let's go into this. Again, I am pro Second Amendment. I support guns. I have guns. I use guns. And I love guns. In fact, I want as many people that follow me and watch my show and are people that are minority groups, I want you all to have as many guns as you possibly can. So, with that being said, let's watch.
So that's the head of the Democratic Party speaking very clearly that the party's position on guns. If we don't control them, you can't have them. Every Democrat thinks this is part of it.
So one thing here is, I am not a Democrat. I know Tucker Carlson does not understand. Well, he does understand this, but he loves to lie to his audience. But, like, Democrats are cringe. I'm just going to be honest with you, and I'm saying this with all due sincerity and seriousness. Democrats on the issue of guns are fucking cringe, okay? They have no idea what the fuck they're talking about. But not all people that are left-leaning are Democrats, because Democrats are a right-wing party. Democrats are a right-wing party. I know people, their minds get blown when they hear this information. Republicans are a far right-wing fascist party. Democrats are just a standard run-of-the-muck Republican light right-wing party. So again, I don't give a fuck about Democrats on this issue. I'd be shocked if you could find many Democrat, supporting transgender people, because we're going to be talking about transgender people in this clip. Tucker Carlson can't help himself. Most transgender people, they might reluctantly vote for Democrats because Republicans literally want to murder them, but every trans person I've ever met really doesn't like the Democratic Party. So again, this is one of those weird things where he's going to take something a Democrat said and then pretend that it applies to people that aren't Democrats. Anyway, let's watch.
The catechism. So you can imagine our surprise. The other day, we're driving through Cambridge in the old hybrid Subaru, adjusting our surgical masks to cover both nose and mouth, and listening, needless to say, to National Public Radio, the voice of menopausal liberalism. And as we're listening, we hear this. We're going to play it for you and see if you can understand our total shock.
Mass shootings targeting LGBTQ spaces and a rise in anti-trans rhetoric have inspired some queer people to take up arms. New Hampshire's Public Radio Todd Bookman joined a monthly gathering of a gun group that sees firearms as key to their own self-defense. And as you might imagine, this story does include the sound of gunfire.
On a recent Sunday morning, the parking lot of Pawtuckaway State Park in southeastern New Hampshire is filling up with hikers. There's also a different crew, packing up warm clothes and weapons.
Thank you all for coming to Rainbow Reload.
Your anti-trans rhetoric makes the trans community carry guns. Rainbow Reload!
So anyway, now, quick history lesson for all of the people watching my program. Ronald Reagan, a failed actor who became governor of California, banned guns. if you're wondering what's going on with California's gun laws, Ronald Reagan restricted guns. Why? Because black people would legally, constitutionally carry their weapons for demonstrations. So Ronald Reagan signed an unconstitutional law that restricted the rights of black people to have guns. And now they're going to do this for transgender people. I've said this on my show for many, many years. Many years, I know, Tucker Carlson thinks that trans people were invented a couple days ago, but for many years on my program, I've advocated for minorities, especially people that are queer. I'm drinking seltzer, so I got some burps here. To buy guns. Buy guns, buy ammo, go to firing ranges, learn how to shoot, and defend yourself if necessary. Why? Because the people that want to murder you, the people that want to murder everyone like you or anyone that's a minority, they have guns. They have guns, right? So these are the options, the way I see it. Get the fuck out of this shithole country. Totally legitimate option, by the way. That's a great option, right? If I could do it, I would, maybe at some point in the future. So get the fuck out of this shithole country. Option number 1. Option number 2, get a gun and defend yourself. Those are the options if you're a minority and you live in the United States. But again, shithole country, they don't give a fuck about the Constitution. I mean, 14th Amendment of the Constitution clearly states that if you engage in an insurrection, you're banned from running for office, yet Donald Trump is running for office. First Amendment of the Constitution says a right to free press. We saw in 2020 that cops were shooting and killing journalists for trying to get a video of protests, right? So we don't have a First Amendment. 8th Amendment protection against cruel and unusual punishment. Well, we have waterboarding and that's legal. So, hey, whatever. People are on Rikers Island right now who haven't even been charged with a crime. They're just in holding for multiple years and dying in Rikers Island. So we don't really have that either. But again, I say this, shall not be infringed, motherfucker. Let's keep watching.
They're packing heat. They'll be appendix carrying in more ways than one. Watch out. Wait a second, we thought. This is NPR, National Public Radio, suddenly telling you that actually guns are good. They're valuable tools of self-defense, really against you. So there are times when guns...
Who is the you here? Well, I know the you is like the fucking 45, 60-year-old boomer who's losing their hair because they've got male pattern baldness, right? And who doesn't even need a cup holder because they can just rest their can of beer right on their belly, right? That's the audience here that Tucker Carlson is speaking to. But again, I just want to say this for the record, that trans people have been pro-gun in the same way that a lot of black people have been pro-gun for a long time, because we are very frequently victimized by right-wing maniacs. It's just a fact, okay? A bunch of right-wing maniacs love to harass and kill and injure minorities. Again, transgender women, especially black transgender women, have been murdered all across this country on a pretty much weekly basis just because they're transgender. And, uh-oh, I didn't know that you were transgender. I'm going to kill you. And then the murderer gets off because it's actually legal to kill someone because I panicked. I panicked and then beat their fucking skull in and killed them. But I panicked, so therefore it's legal. Look up trans panic defense. But anyway, let's keep going.
Guns are good, says NPR. And we thought, well, wait a second. We've been listening to NPR since, well, Click and Clack, the Tappet brothers. And we remember very clearly their position on guns. For example, quote, the U.S. has more guns than any other country in the world.
That's true. Also, this is not related to the gun argument. Like, yeah, it's just a fact. Now, again, I don't give a shit about NPR's history on this issue, but like, the U.S. has more guns than any other country in the world. That's just a fact. That's a neutral fact that can be interpreted in either direction. So
this is the same NPR that, in between updates on the latest trans dinosaur emojis, we've been following those very carefully, routinely runs segments calling for...
There's a trans dinosaur emoji? This is news to me.
...for more gun control, and not subtle ones, like the segment entitled, Many Gun Owners Support Gun Control, so why don't they speak out? Oh yeah, a lot of gun owners support gun control. Of course.
Which is also, like, he's pretending that it's a joke, but it is true that most gun owners support gun control. Now, again, we have to define what gun control is. What is gun control? Well, maybe you shouldn't be allowed to purchase, you know, like one of those fucking military Humvees that has a turret like you see in like fucking like the Expendables or some shit, you know? Maybe people shouldn't be allowed to have those. I would support that. I don't think people should have fucking Humvees with minigun turrets. That's just my opinion, okay? I also, to be honest with you, don't think anyone needs an AK-47, an AR-15. That doesn't mean that I don't think that people should have any guns, but I mean, do we really need these assault rifles? Let's be honest, right? What happened to good old-fashioned shotguns? You know, you ever shoot a shotgun and then do that reload and then the sound is just so satisfying? What happened to that fucking good old-fashioned shotguns? I say this, bring back shotguns.
They do. And yet, here's that same National Public Radio, state media, controlled by the Biden administration, encouraging people.
Okay, like, publicly funded media does not mean it's controlled by the Biden administration, right?
To go to the gun store immediately. But not all people. Just trans people. Guns are bad, except in the hands of trans people.
So, I mean, let's be honest here. Let's have an actual genuine argument. Guns are bad. Like, that's just true. Guns are really bad. Like, I mean, just historically speaking, guns are probably just weapons in general are probably just the worst things in the world. But guns especially, their only use is to kill people. That's it. People, oh, but I'm gonna hunt my deer. You don't need to be hunting deer. And let's be honest, if you need a gun to hunt a deer, you're not a man, okay? Let's just be honest here, okay? Like, why don't you just run after that fucking deer and beat the shit out of him, okay? I don't know. But anyway, so guns are garbage. That's true. But we live in a country that has guns. We have a constitution that worships guns. So I say this, if we live in the war zone, you got to either equip yourself or leave. That's my opinion. Those are the two things. Now, again, you can take the third option of stay here and not have a gun. That's your right, whatever. But I say this, if you are trans, you are a target. People are going to want to kill you. So if that's the case, having a gun and knowing how to shoot it, it actually might come in handy.
Wow. Here's more.
Groups like Rainbow Reload exist around the country, often called pink pistol clubs. It's a place for experts and the gun curious to practice and improve their shooting. But this goes beyond hobby. There's a practical goal here, to prepare and protect themselves.
If the world is dangerous, then you have to be dangerous back. And that very much has pushed me into where I am now.
Ooh, the gun curious. Well, you know, when NPR describes something as the fill-in-the-blank curious, then it's a good thing. Ooh, the pedophile curious. Now the gun curious. The world is dangerous. You have to be dangerous back.
Like, that's the thing about this. I don't really understand, like, what is Tucker Carlson's argument? Right? Like, I really don't understand what the argument here is. I mean, like, I think it's just trying to shock people about, like, oh my God, the trans just have guns. Oh, they're gonna kill us all. Right? I think that's what he's trying to say here, but, like, on a logical level, he's not really presenting an argument. He's just saying, like, yo, trans people have guns. Right? Like, I don't... What?
Now, is that a quote from an FBI indictment of the Proud Boys? No, it's from an NPR segment. At this point, it's hard to tell the difference. And the lip-smacking NPR reporters just say it without any sense of self-awareness at all. What is going on here? Well, you know what's going on here. Is that NPR has decided that guns are bad, except when the enforcers of its ideology have guns. You can't have guns, but faithful servants of the Democratic Party can. And that makes sense because, like, all...
Again, I know Republicans are stupid, right? But the idea that all of a sudden we're talking about transgender Americans, and that's synonymous with faithful servants of the Democratic Party? What? Yo, and now I know Tucker Carlson doesn't believe this, but his dumbass viewers do, right? Like, they actually think that transgender people like Democrats. They do. They actually believe. I mean, come on.
All totalitarians, they want a monopoly on force, right? So again,
what? Okay, so trans people defending themselves against right-wing maniacs equals Democrats want an army that's a monopoly of force. By the way, the implication here is a monopoly on violence is bad. What about police? Police have a monopoly on violence. Are they bad? Wow, based Tucker Carlson coming out against police. How about this, Tucker? Do you want to defund the police? I mean, what next, radical? Am I right? Come on.
Debate ends at that point. When one side has all the firearms, you don't have to argue. You say, well, you can't change your sex. Shut up, bigot! Bang, bang!
I mean, I personally, good example. But also, I mean, like, this is just some crazy-ass moral panic garbage. This is the next step of this shit. You're going to see this a lot now that Tucker's been doing this, is that not only are the trans people groomers and they're going to kill the children, but now they all have guns. They all have guns now. Wow. So I say this, before the government bans your guns, if you're trans, I don't know, get a couple. But fuck the goddamn AR-15s. Those aren't cool. No one thinks they're cool. Get a good old-fashioned shotgun. You know, get a shotgun collection. That's what I recommend. But again, obviously, gun safety is most important. But it is a very, very peculiar time period where now conservatives are upset that people want to defend themselves. Very interesting. Very interesting stuff. But it's also not new. Again, Ronald Reagan signed unconstitutional gun control in California because he hated black people, and black people were like, yo, well, we can have guns. It is allowed, so let's go get them. And then Ronald Reagan was like, oh, God! Ah! And you know how that story went. So, anyway, we got some dumb motherfuckers here once again in this country, and they're on TV. They put the dumbest